Welcome to the February 7th, 2024 Council of Government meeting. If you could please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before I move on, I just want to let Justin did contact Rajo and let her know that he will be here in March. And then Bruce wasn't able to make it down the hill because of the weather. So, okay. Next we have consent agenda. We have a number of items on the consent agenda. Is there any board member that wishes to move an item off of the agenda? Okay, I'm seeing none. Is there any public comment? I'm seeing none in the room. I'm gonna go to Zoom. Seeing none. Okay. And with that, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Also moved.
Second.
Moved by Gary, second by Tim. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 601, right, Ann?
Yes.
Okay. I can do math tonight. Okay. Next, we have public comment. So comments to be limited to items that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council and not posted on the agenda. So with that, is there any public comments for anything not on the agenda from the public? Seeing none in the room. None online. Move on to the next item, which is Caltrans. Hi. Thanks for driving up here tonight.
Oh, it was actually a nice drive. It wasn't too bad. So hopefully it's a little nicer when I get back down, right?
Are you spending the night?
He's gonna go boating.
Yeah.
You can boat home.
At least he doesn't need chains.
Yeah, I'm going the other way, so. Yeah, well, thanks for having me back again. A few things I'd like to inform you. So we do have a new interim director for District 10. Grace Masago has been selected as the interim director for District 10. And she should be the long-term interim director. No status on when a permanent would be announced, but I believe you guys have worked with Grace in the past, so great person to have on board. As far as some announcements, so the U.S. Department of Transportation has awarded Caltrans more than $63 million to fix and install more than 1,000 charging stations at 300 sites throughout the statewide. So these funds are going to be used to replace broken charging stations and install additional chargers throughout the major corridors of the state. The Federal Highway Administration is having a call for projects through their Bridge Investment Program. There are two categories on which this Bridge Investment Program is for. One is for planning documents, and the other for applications for bridge project grants that are not over $100 million. So the deadline to apply for the bridge program is March 19th. Also, the Department of Transportation is releasing its call for applications under the RAISE grant program. Deadline to apply for the RAISE grant is on February 28th of this year. The California Energy Commission has released its call for applications under its Clean Transportation Program to provide electric vehicle charging infrastructure funds for government light-duty fleets. The deadline to apply for these fundings is April 5th of this year. I do want to update you on Caltrans maintenance activities. So at the beginning of the storm systems back on Saturday, Caltrans has activated all districts on the emergency operating centers to help support statewide storm responses. These emergency efforts are still ongoing through the rest of this storm. So what that does mean is that we have all hands on deck for Caltrans in the maintenance area for any blockages or flooding we have along the road, so that we can respond to them quickly and fast to clear up those roads. So we want to let you know that Caltrans is aware of what's going on the roadways, and we do have all maintenance area out there to help clear out the roads. We do also want to remind you of an app. So Caltrans does have an application called Quick Maps. What this application is, it does give you real-time information on our road conditions. So it will tell you about any road closures, chain controls, or any incidents that are on our roads. And this is in real time. I've used it myself when I go on travel for the winter, so we definitely want to remind the group to use that as a way of traveling safe. And with that does conclude my report. I'm here for any questions or comments.
Does the board have any questions, Tim?
That's a great app, by the way.
Yeah.
Not only will it show you rest areas, if they're closed or open, it shows you the cameras. We use it all the time, especially.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Isabel?
No comment.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I saw your hand go up.
I have a question.
Yes.
On the federal money for charging stations, you said that's roughly 300 charging stations.
Yes, sir.
Divided by 58 counties is about 5 charging stations per county, so that's equally dispersed.
That's equally dispersed, so.
So we'll tell you where we want our 5. We'll send it to Grace.
Let me know. We'll see what we can do in our area here,
Okay,
right?
thank you.
Are there any other questions from the board or comments? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to, are there any public comments? We need to make sure I cover that. There isn't really anyone here. Do I have to keep asking, Monica? She's on mute.
She's muted.
Good evening. So there may be somebody available online or participating online. So we should go through the process of requesting any public comments.
Okay, I'll keep asking. Okay. So is there any public comment for item number 12? I'm not seeing it in the room. And shaking her head no.
None online.
We're online. Okay. We'll move on to item number 12, county city reports. I'll start with Robert. Hi, Robert.
Hello. Good afternoon. The report for today will consist mainly of the Wagon Trail project. Last month, the board approved an amendment to continue the work that the Native American monitors are doing for the project. That amendment is intended to cover the remaining part of the year, but pending what may go on during the year, there may need to be another visit to the board with another amendment. But currently the project is on winter suspension. There's no contractor activity going on, but the Native American and archaeologist work is ongoing. It's continuing inside the trailer. What has to happen there is whatever was found needs to be cataloged and reports written. That the aim of that work is to get everything done within that trailer by March 4th, because we're expecting that March 4th is a start date for the contractor to begin again activities. So that's where we're at. Meanwhile, in the background, there are many things that are going on that I could probably speak hours to you about. But for example, how we're going to sequence the work this year is happening. We're going to have a meeting regarding that tomorrow. There's all sorts of meetings that go on with the contractor and our team. There's also still discussions on a change order to cover the construction of a retaining wall that needs to be improved. So those discussions are ongoing. We still need to receive submittals, and then we review those things and we move forward there. But that, given the nature of that change order that we expect, we'll be presenting that to the Board of Supervisors when the time comes. Okay, meanwhile, there are other projects that we're doing. There's a bunch of stuff. We have trees everywhere that we're still working on. The roads were open, but we have to go back and do all the cleanup. We're working on the Valley Springs Safety Improvement Project. We're trying to complete the right-of-way. There's a little bit of work left with the school district. There's been some reaching out and communication back and forth, but once we get that right-of-way completed, we move on to the construction phase, go out to bid and get the bids in and get the contractor going to get that work done this year. And we're just working on many other projects, so. And
Speaking of wagon trail, last year when we had adverse weather like we're having now, not quite as, it was a little bit more severe last year because of the intensity and continued of them. We had some issues with construction where we had a hole in the road itself at one time. Have we experienced anything? How's it going out there so far in the weather we've had over the course of the last couple of weeks? Have we had any issues at all?
no issues. I was out there today looking at that site and they just were flowing fine. I didn't see any damage to the pavement or anything. Everything looked like it was operating the way it was supposed to
The way
be
it was
operating,
designed
yeah.
to work?
Yeah, last year with that tremendous amount of rain, there was just so much water, we believe there may have been a spring or something that got under there and it caused a pothole and that grew, and so we feel that with AC right now, we may need to do some sort of drainage repair, permanent repair that Caltrans wants us to do in that area, so we may need to revisit that little section again this year.
Yes, we need to take care of it, whatever needs to be done. We don't want to find out 3 years from now we have a major problem because we didn't address it so, okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Any public comment? Seeing none and shaking our head. Okay, thanks, Robert.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Next, we have city report.
Yeah, so our Angels Creek Bike and Pedestrian Network so Dewberry's currently working on the environmental for that. Our collector road striping and sign replacement, we've hired a contractor and work for that will begin soon. We're doing regular routine maintenance, and then our sidewalk, State Route 49 gap fill project is completed, as well as our Murphy's Grade Road improvement.
Thank you.
Any
Are
questions?
there any public comments on that? Seeing none? Okay, we'll move on.
Just one comment.
Oh, yes.
She mentioned Dewberry, and I just want to bring up, in case everybody doesn't know, everybody remembers Amber Collins. She left here to go to Dewberry, and now she has left Dewberry.
Oh,
Yeah, and she was our consultant on the wagon trail at Dewberry, so hope she does well. Good luck to her. We will miss her.
Yes, we will. But I have her
She's
cell
also
number,
helping
so-
us with, well, she's also helping and with staff augmentation, so. Yeah, it's a bummer. Okay, we'll move on. Everybody, sorry, I see lights on and off, and did I get everybody's comments? Okay, just making sure. Okay, move on to item number 13, which is the minute order approving the appointment of chair and vice chair for the calendar year of 2024. So I will bring it to the board, but I believe, Roger, you need to go over any rules?
I just have a small comment. It's
Okay.
staff recommends the council appoint a chair and vice chair for the 2024 calendar year. I'll turn it over to the chair for discussion and a motion. In the past, they've done oh my goodness, I can't think, a rotation, but it's at the council's direction, however they would like to do it.
Good.
We've gone, being part of COG for a number of years, we've had the chairs stay for a number of years. We had one stay for about 5 years. Yeah, for 5 years. So I would like, because we've had some turnover, I would like to see make a motion to have Amanda remain as chair, and then I would make a motion to have Tim Muteries, who's been on here for a long time, 8 years, and has not had an opportunity to even be a vice chair. So I would nominate him as vice chair. That's my comments and mine.
I will support those comments.
So
Okay.
those are my motion.
Yeah, so I was going to say, so is that your motion, Jay?
That is a motion.
Okay,
I will second.
okay, second by Isabel. Are there any public comments? Okay, seeing none, bring it back to the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So 601, you say yes for yourself? Oh, you can say yes for, you can say yes for yourself too.
All right.
Thank you.
Goonies.
Okay, so then with that, what will happen next is, Roger will set up an executive management, so now you will be on the executive management team, that goes over the items to bring to the board.
Yep, and it may be a short turnaround because it's February and we need to get our meeting in before our March meeting. So I'll be contacting you guys tomorrow.
Thank you. We'll move on to item number 14, and this is the presentation by Richardson and Company to request the exception of the council's or accepted by the council of the fiscal year 22-23 Annual Transportation Development Act financial audit for the Calaveras Council of Governments and the Transit Agency. So with that, I will turn it over to the Executive Director.
Thank you, Chair Follendorf. I'd like to introduce Brian Nash. He is the representative from Richardson and Company, and he is on board. And as you guys, I'm sure, know him, he's been working with us for many years. Brian, can you hear me?
I sure can.
Thank you. I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, so there's several things that we're going over tonight. There's a governance letter. This is starting at page 69 of your packet. There's a governance letter. This is a letter of required disclosures to a governing body under audit standards. My outline will cover what's in this letter. Following that letter is what's called a management letter. That's a letter of recommendations, things we noticed during our audit. And then the last thing that we're presenting is the audited financial statements. There's two financial statements that we're presenting tonight, the Council of Governments and the Transit Agency. Hopefully that doesn't mess up the agenda here since both of them are included. One of the things to keep in mind in doing these audits, we're responsible for providing our opinion based on our audit, but management is responsible for the financial statements. Even though we prepare the financial statements, it's management's responsibility for those financial statements. There was a new accounting standard that was implemented, and I'll get to this management letter in just a second. There was a new accounting standard that was supposed to be implemented, which was related to software subscriptions, but it was determined that there really weren't any big software subscriptions that went out into the future where a liability would need to be recorded, so that didn't really have any impact on either entity. So this management letter here, there are a few comments. The first two are just claim items. The resolution approving the claim should include the code section number under which the allocation's approved. So if there's a transit allocation, it should be under the TDA code section for the transit allocation. If it's for street and roads, it should be under the streets and road allocation. There was one of the resolutions that didn't have that in there. The second item was related to including the budget with the transit claim. One of the items that's supposed to be included in the transit claim is the budget. Even though management prepares the budget, so they know what it is. It's just supposed to be part of that claim package. So when you approve the claim, you see that it's related to the budget. So those are really, I consider those really to be kind of minor items, but things that are required by the TDA. The last item is related to the reserves that the council has. We recommend that there's a resolution approving those reserves, maybe either when you're approving the budget or separately in the final meeting of the year in June, possibly approve the reserves for the following year. And then also, we recommend recording those reserves in the fund balance area of the QuickBooks General Ledger. That way it's there for us when we're doing the audit. So the reserves right now are, the management knows what they are, they compute them, but they're, kind of how the method that should be used for computing those and what the dollar amounts are, they're not formalized. So it's just basically formalizing those. Okay, now we'll go to the audited financial statements for the Council of Governments. Our opinion in the financial statements is on page 1. If you'd like to scroll down to that, it's Independent Auditor's Report. It is what's called a clean or unmodified opinion, so there's nothing unusual this year that happened. If you continue down to page 4, the statement of net position. So this statement of net position is showing numbers on the full accrual basis. You budget based on the modified accrual basis in your general fund. You don't budget for changes in the pension liability or the lease liability. You'll see there, excuse me, down under there's capital assets that are on this page. Those are long-term assets that aren't in the general fund. And then on the current liability section and the long-term liability section just below that, you'll see that there's a lease liability, there's compensated absences, and there's a net pension liability. So those are included here to show what all the liabilities will be on the full accrual basis. There's about 193,000 of those long-term liabilities added. The largest of those is the pension liability. You can see there's 146,000. That was up quite a bit this year. The year that is used to compute that liability was 2022, and CalPERS had a bad investment year. They actually had an investment loss that year of about 6%. So the liability went up. It goes up and down based on its investment earnings. If you go to, the fund balance, just go to the balance sheet of the governmental funds, which is page 6. Keep going. So this is the governmental fund balance sheet. You'll see there the first fund is the general fund. That's your main operating fund. You budget that one using the current financial resources measurement focus, basically current assets and liabilities, what's going to happen, what you're going to pay during the year and what you're going to receive during the year. If you'll look at the bottom there of the page under unassigned fund balance, that's kind of the money left over available to appropriate. Oops, just scroll past it. There we go. There's 606,000. That's about 65% of expenses. We've talked about this number from year to year. At one point, it was a really low balance. I think now you're kind of in a good position. You have a lot of grants that sometimes take quite a bit of time to collect. So it's important to have a little bit of fund balance available there. That's about 7 to 8 months of expenses. So that gives you a little bit of wiggle room, a little bit of leeway in case those federal grants and state grants come in late. So I think you're in a pretty good position there. If you look to the right of the general fund, all those other funds are special revenue funds combined. They hold $4.5 million of fund balance. You'll see the biggest one there just to the right of the general fund, $2.4 million in the local transportation fund, the LTF fund. So you have quite a bit of resources there, and I know you're kind of keeping it for your transit project. So the different funds that are available for the transit project, in addition to that local transportation fund, the LTF fund there, $2.4 million, there's $77,000, the fund next to it, the STA fund. And in the non-major funds, there's the State of Good Repair Fund. So all those funds are available for your transit project. So there's quite a bit of funds there on hand. This is at June 30, 23, obviously. If you go to the next page, the income statement of the governmental funds, it's going to show, actually this is the reconciliation between the two funds. Go to one more page. It's page 8. You'll see that the general fund had a loss during 23 of about $231,000. So spent down some of the funds that were received in the prior year, basically. So at the bottom of the page, you'll see there was about over $1 million of fund balance at the beginning of the year, and some of that was spent down. Did you need me to stop? It's actually page 8 that we're looking for. You went past it. There we go. Revenues are down about $300,000, and expenses were down about $13,000. The professional service expenses were up about $80,000. That was partially due to the Dewberry contract. That was about $189,000 of expenses there. Salaries and benefits were actually down quite a bit, $89,000. And part of that was due to the former executive officer's vacation and management time off that was paid in 22. That was about $39,000. So of the $89,000 reduction, $39,000 of it was a one-time payout, and the rest of it was just the timing of when people left and when people were hired, I believe. So now I'd like you to turn to the footnotes. Footnotes of the financial statements follow this page. On page 15, at the top of the page, there's an unassigned fund balance section, and it shows that there's the reserves that the board approves are there. There's $303,000 in the general fund, and there's $132,000 in the LTF fund and $132,000 in the RSTP fund for operating reserve for operating expenses. So those don't get shown on the face of the balance sheet due to the accounting requirements, but those are shown here in the footnote. If you'd like to continue scrolling down, page 17 will show, there's a little table at the top of page 17 that shows the amount of cash and investments you have on hand in the county treasury. To go on to the next page, page 18 shows the liabilities. There's a lease liability and a compensated absences liability. It's just slightly below where is on the screen now. The lease liability is down to $26,000, so it's getting down there pretty low. There's a table just a little bit lower that shows it's just a little bit over a year left on the lease. So clock is ticking on getting the new transit facility done there, or that would have to be extended. There's pension plan footnotes. I'm not going to get into the detail of the pension plan footnote, but it follows that starting on page 19 and continues on for several pages. It goes through all of the methods and assumptions that were used to compute the pension liability. It shows the percentage that's contributed for the employer and employee. And then on to page, so you're now on the pension liability. If you continue past that, you go to page 24. This shows there's a deferred compensation plan, and it shows the contribution requirements. And then there's state grants. There's 2 state grants with unspent money. One of them is the PTMI-SCA. There's $221,000 there. On the following page, there's LC top money. There's about $124,000 unspent at June 30th on that program. Now I'd like you to turn to page 26, which is the budget and actual report. There's budget and actual numbers are shown two different ways. There at the top of the page is how it's reported in the financial statements with no carryover money from the prior year. It shows that the revenues were $622,000 under budget, and the expenses were $388,000 under budget. I think that was largely due to timing of when the projects hit, when the grants were received. At the bottom of the page, it shows with carryover, and it's much closer to the budget. There's $597,000 of carryover funds that get added to the revenue side, and then it's very close to the budget. The variance with budget's only $25,000. There is a required supplementary information page for the pension plan. The next page, it shows that there's at the top there's a percentage in the top section. It shows the percentage funded of the pension plan. In 2022, it was 93% funded, and then it dropped to 84% funded, and that was due to those investment losses that I mentioned. And this shows at the bottom of the table how much was put in during each year, what the contributions were each year. So the rest of the financial statements are, there's a combining statement for non-major funds on page 28. It shows stated good repair funds, LC top funds, and pedestrian and bicycle funds. So you have some funds on hand. Those are considered non-major funds. Those are too small to be considered major. So we combine those and test those combined. There are some funds there, and then there's some tables that I'm not going to have you look at in the back of the report that are TVA compliance schedules that show the code section number under which the allocations were made. So that's all I have on the Council of Governments. If I could pause there if you had any questions, or we could go on to the transit agency.
Are there any questions for this section? The board's shaking their head, so you can go on to the transit.
Okay, the transit agency financial statements are just below this one, if you keep scrolling down. So the transit agency, it also had a clean opinion, no modifications. In the back of the statement, there is a compliance finding, and that's due to an overclaim of TDA funds. I don't think the federal funds were considered when the amount of the claim was determined. The claim is not, it's supposed to be the total expenses less the federal funds that were claimed is supposed to be the maximum amount to claim for TDA funds. And it was a little bit more than that because I think the federal funds were not considered. So that just made it so there's a little bit more in net position there is what it's called on the agency fund. This is a full accrual financial statement. This is an enterprise fund. So at the bottom there of the financial statements, you'll see total net position. There's 2.4 million, and there's 1.52 restricted for operations, 1.52 million, and 123,000 restricted for capital purchases, and that's just restricted based on how it was claimed. So those were claimed and then not spent for those purposes. So, over $1.6 million there available. That's probably a bit more than we normally see in fund balance. It was due to the overclaiming probably in the last couple of years. Usually we see, 3 to 6 months of operating expenses in net position. It is important to have a little bit of extra funds because grants come in late. I think the grants that exist this year are entirely receivable at June 30. So even though you were supposed to receive, you can see it under the due from other governments there at the top, due from other agencies. There was $477,000 of federal funds, but they were entirely receivable at the end of the year. They weren't received in cash until after the year was over. So it's important to have a little bit of fund balance or net position there to take that into account, to have some funds on hand until you receive those grants. So that's the amount on hand was about 116% of operating expenses. That's quite a bit. But you could reclaim some of those funds that are restricted for operations, as well as the capital purchases for the transit facility, if that's what you want to do. If you had 6 months of operating expenses, I think that would be around $700,000 that you would keep on hand, and then the rest you could reclaim possibly for that transit facility. So there are some funds there available. Page 5, the next page, the income statement, shows the revenues were up quite a bit, from 20 to 60,000, so that was good. You'll see that the operating expenses were up from 1.3 million to 1.5 million. So without considering depreciation, the change in depreciation there, that was about $200,000 increase. 139,000 of that was purchase transportation increased cost, as well as the fuel. So that was a big part of it, those two line items. And I believe the revenue miles were a lot higher that year is why. There's also a $33,000 increase in professional services for spare labs for intelligent transportation services. You see that as part of that expense increase. Non-operating revenues towards the bottom there, towards the middle, we're up $285,000. That's mostly higher STA cost claim and LC TOP, low carbon transit operations program money claimed. There's also a little bit of capital contributions. Those are the grants that are claimed for fixed assets. They're at the bottom, $125,000. So overall, there was a $209,730 positive change in that position during 23. Okay, if you'd like to scroll to the footnotes, page 8 shows there is some restricted cash. State of good repair, restricted for bus purchases, a little bit of LTF money, restricted for capital asset purchases, $123,000. If you continue on to page 10, shows the fixed assets that exist. Large part of your fixed asset are your buses and your bus shelters. If you keep going to Note D, shows there's a lease liability for the transit center, and there's 1 more year to go on that lease, so we assume that won't be renewed, at least not on a long-term basis if you're working on your transit facility. There's also footnotes that go through the revenues and expenses of all the different state programs. Not much claimed in PTMI-SEA this year. At the bottom of page 12, top of page 13, there's LC TOP, about 131,000 claimed and spent. A lot of that was for electric van and software. State of good repair at the bottom of page 13. There's unexpended funds there of 118,000. Page 14, the fair revenue ratio used to always be a big deal. We were always sweating whether we were going to make the fair revenue ratio. Well, with the changes due to COVID and the state law, we're allowed to throw federal transit funds in there. So you can see it's 46%. I believe there's at least 1 more year where we can include transit fund, federal transit funds. So until they don't allow that anymore, it's not going to be a big deal for the transit agency anymore. And there is a note that discloses the subsequent event, the tip of the iceberg, the purchase of the land, 3 acres of land in San Andreas. So the next page, subsequent event footnote for the purchase of the land for the transit facility. So that's all I had for the transit agency. I can pause there if you have any questions.
Does the board have any questions?
I do.
Oh, Gary does.
Okay?
Page 17 of the CTA. The schedule of findings and responses.
Yes.
You were saying that California code regulations not allow transit operator to claim LTF revenue in excess of actual operating and capital expenses. I believe that what you're seeing here was a twofold situation, and Melissa can correct me if I'm wrong. We claimed those funds because we ordered an electric van, which we were supposed to go into electric per the state of California. It took longer for that van to get to us, so those funds were carried over, and we did get the electric van, and you noted it in 2023. So that, there is an exception to that. It needs, in my opinion, needs to be noted, that we were trying to comply to California state law by getting electric vehicles, but they're so backed up that those funds we thought we were gonna expend in that year, we didn't, because the fund wasn't, the van wasn't delivered to us within that time frame. But we did utilize the funds when that van showed up, and we had to pay for it, and we have it now, and we combined those with 2023 to pay for that van. And so, my opinion, this, what's written here is correct, but it needs a footnote on it to explain that we were trying to comply with California law and what happened. Just so people looking at this don't say that we asked for more funding than we were gonna use. That's not exactly the case.
And let me add,
Right.
because I think, like you said, it's twofold. That issue that you're talking about is on capital expenditures. On this item is the transit operations, just to operate the buses. So if the council remembers, I came back to the council in June of '23 and decreased the LTF estimate, because I'm trying to stay so on top of this and keep it razor thin, because we apply for federal funds, and that's what Brian was talking about. When you look at the 477,000 that I had in the budget, I did not receive that money until after the fiscal year had ended. So we've seen this multiple times with transit, is you're trying to capture that federal funding and not run the fund negative. So when I talked to Brian, what our solution is for this 200,000 is I will not claim transit funding, LTF funding for fiscal year 23-24. And so then he wants me to come back and have a operating reserve, which he mentioned 3 to 6 months, which would be around 750,000. So we have been dealing with multiple issues, and I will correct this. But not only, on the footnotes did we see on COG where we've had PTMISCA still hanging on, State of Good Repair. We have buses that we've ordered. You've heard Aaron give updates on this. A lot of agencies, and Brian, you can, back me up on this. There are multiple agencies out there that have ordered buses that haven't received them.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and that all ties into this, is we're
Yes.
trying to comply, and it all,
Yeah.
So what you're supposed to do when you determine that you're not gonna receive a bus, you're really supposed to budget claim the fund, the capital funds in the year that it's budgeted. And if it turns out you're not gonna get it, you can come back with an amended claim
And that's what I was trying to.
to reduce the amount that you take.
all right.
So I think it was taken when even though it was probably at the time it was taken, it was known that the bus wasn't gonna be in time.
Okay.
So that was last year.
That is
But
correct.
I had no problem changing the language to say it was in anticipation of
All right, thank you.
purchasing an electric bus that was late in being delivered. Everybody is having that trouble. I think one of them even said, they say up to 4 years until they get their orders fulfilled.
We ordered
something.
it in like, what,
It's
Yeah.
just
20?
amazing.
We're almost there.
20, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just amazing.
That was only one bus. I know the larger cities and areas that have a number of them going already, they're probably the first in line.
Yep.
Because they order bigger buses and so,
Lots
but
of them.
I think
right.
the rural counties are all in the same boat, not
Yep.
other ones too, that
But I
we just keep
appreciate,
waiting for these things and waiting.
yeah, I appreciate you noting that and bringing that up, because that is something that we hadn't talked about today. And thank you, Brian.
Yes. Just a couple other disclosures, and then I'm done with my presentation. So one of the things we're supposed to talk about is what's estimated in your financial statements. So the fair value of the cash and investments in the county pool is estimated. That fluctuates when the interest rates change, because they have fixed rate investments in their pool. The qualifying expenses under grants is considered an estimate. The grantors can come back and audit those expenses and change what they allow. The depreciable lives for your fixed assets, compensated absences, current portion is an estimate. The lease liability discount rate used is an estimate. And the pension liability, that's based on an actuarial valuation. So that's an estimate. And then the last thing, there were no difficulties or unusual items in this year's audit. It was a very normal routine audit. So with that, I'm completely done with my presentation. Any other questions I can answer?
Any other questions? Everyone's shaking their head, but I do need to ask for public comment. Is there any public comment? Minding there is not a single person in this room. They have all gone home.
Not because of you, Brian.
Yeah. The weather, I think. The weather's getting pretty bad. Erin, is there anything online?
None online.
No. Okay. Thank you, Brian, for the presentation. So next, we need to have a motion to approve,
To
accept
accept.
accept this audit.
So moved.
Okay, move with the changes that Gary noted?
Yes,
Okay.
with the corrections.
We've got a motion, is there a second?
Sure. Second.
Second by Pat, all in favor?
Aye.
601.
Thank you, Brian.
Hey, you're welcome. I'll leave you now. Thanks a lot.
Have a good night.
You too.
That was a lot.
Okay, we got number 15, item number 15, which is the minute order approving the award of professional service agreement with LSC Transportation to complete the coordinated public transit human services transportation plan, and I'll turn it over to Erin.
Hello, Board. So every 5 years, we're required to update our coordinated plan. I could list it off the whole title, but I'll call it the coordinated plan for now. Our last one was completed in 2020. In November of 23, we went out with an RFP. The proposals were due January 12th. We received 2 proposals. A committee or a review group, if you will, of myself, our trans operator, and assist staff member reviewed the proposals, and we ranked LSC Transportation the top proposal. And so we've brought a professional services agreement, and we recommend that you approve that.
Are there any questions by the board on this? Everyone shaking their head. Gary, you got anything? You're thinking. Okay. Nope. Okay. Is there any public comment on this? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. If there aren't any other questions, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Tim, second.
I'll second.
Second by Pat. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, 601. Okay, next we'll move on to council report. I will start with Tim.
I have nothing to report.
Okay, Isabel?
Nothing to report.
Pat?
Nothing to report.
Gary?
Wow. How much time do I have?
5 minutes.
Yeah, we gotta get Tim.
You're already acting like a vice chair.
Well, we gotta let Tim get home. He's gotta go up the hill.
Okay, I have nothing to report.
Caroline?
What do we normally report on?
Any
Staff.
activities that you have going on in the district. Sometimes we announce events.
Okay.
We'll announce, I'm trying to think.
Okay.
Like
trying
if
to
they've
think.
released any plans or
Okay.
any city items that need comment, or if they're holding any outreach items that they would want the public to come to.
That would be to this board to give feedback. Yeah.
There's a park, the park planning committee meeting is happening on the 15th, is that right? Or 21st, that's what it was, the 21st. So that's the only thing that I can think of
Okay.
for Utica Park.
Gary's gonna hit you up with your leftover funds though.
Well, if she's done, are you done? I did remember something.
I think I'm done.
Be prepared for that one. He's trying to look for some money for his park. And I don't have anything to report. We have a board meeting next week, but that's about it.
When's our next council
You got
meeting? Hang
something?
on.
Yeah, I did. I had a meeting with Robert on Monday morning, and we discussed the safe route to schools here in San Andreas, that project, and the timeline. And I told him I want it moved up to start construction at the beginning of 2026. Only a 2-year program to move forward. So he's meeting with the consultant to get the work done in order for us to put out an RFP in early 2026, so that the timeline that it showed. So that's what I asked him to do.
So on March 7th from 4 to 8 at Bret Hart High School in the multipurpose room, we are going to have Caltrans come and do an outreach town hall meeting about the roundabout. So that's probably something you need to know.
Yes. What is that date? March what?
March 7th. I mean, we do have COG on the 6th, and we have a council meeting on the 5th, so it's a busy week.
What time?
4 to 8.
Okay, if there's nothing else to report, we'll move on to staff reports. Is there anything from staff? None? Okay. And then we'll move on to adjournment. So the next meeting will be March 6th, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. Which, by the way, I forgot to welcome Caroline. Caroline is now on this board. So there- Hey, we
For at least a year, because that, of the election this year.
And are you able to set up transit?
I'm good.
Okay, so we'll move on to transit. And next we have the consent agenda on transit. There's multiple items on the whole thing is consent, huh? Sweet. Okay, so the whole thing is consent. Is there any item that you wish to pull from the consent, from the board? Oh, never mind. I'm not seeing things today. Okay, so there's 4 items, sorry. I didn't even see. You need to make that bolder, and I don't know.
I like to fly under the radar.
Okay. Okay, seeing none, is there a motion to move the consent agenda?
So moved.
Moved, is there a second? Second by who?
Me.
Caroline? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we'll move on to regular agenda. Oh, I forgot to ask for public comment. Was there any public comment? No? Okay. Regular agenda is public comment. Is there anyone that wishes to comment on anything not on the agenda for the Transit Authority? Seeing none in the room and shaking our head no for online, we'll move on to item number 7, which is the 23-24 mid-year performance report. And I'll turn it over to Melissa. Or is it Aaron? Aaron, sorry.
It's okay. That's the flying under the radar part. Okay, so in both packets, you'll have seen it in the COG packet as well. I've included a mid-year performance report. It's very similar to what you've seen for the past handful of years as a mid-year report. We've kind of streamlined it a little bit. So it differs now a little bit more from the year end that you'll see at the year end. It covers our operating statistics, service effectiveness, and efficiency. For a quick overview, our operating statistics, everything is up. Our vehicle hours and miles, but also our ridership and revenue. So it's trending well in that case, I guess. Our ridership increased about 46% from last year, with our dial ride almost doubling from this time last year. Our service effectiveness, you'll see on your packet page 23. It's like 4 little fun graphs, and so that's a little bit different, but that does show you for the past 5 years. How that effectiveness is kind of measured, which is passengers per hour, passengers per mile, and what our average daily ridership, all those numbers are up, which is really good. For the last, if you look at fiscal year 21 and 22, I kind of don't like to judge against those necessarily because those were heavily impacted by COVID. So when I'm looking at the numbers, I usually tend to go back to fiscal year 20 because that's when we really started to see an increase in our ridership and our revenues right before COVID hit. So it's very nice to see that our passengers per service hour, our passengers per mile, and our ridership are all trending up and starting to look more closer to that fiscal year 20. So I'm very excited about it. Again, a 46% increase in ridership is nothing to sneeze at. I'm very excited, so happy about that one. And then, let me see. So notably, I also wanted to say under service efficiency, our operations cost per passenger has gone down quite significantly to $39, which is still high, but running rural transit can be expensive, but it's still significantly down from where it was last year, so very excited to see that. And then I just wanted to kind of briefly mention, it's not included necessarily in a report. Oh no, I should mention that I did include a little bit of EV information in there, including how many miles our new van has done this year, how much carbon was saved, which was 2,167 pounds of carbon just in that 6-month time period, and how much kilowatts end up being used to charge it. So, and then at the very last page of the performance report, I did include some advertising information. We're just slightly below what we were last year, but otherwise we've gotten $16,000, almost $17,000 in advertising revenue for this 6-month period. So it's pretty good. It's a hands-off program, which is really nice. There's very little for me to actually do, so it's a really good investment. But I did want to mention upcoming for the next 6 months, if you will. Our Saturday Hopper starts on March 16th, just in time for Murphy's Irish Days, and that of course will run through November. This year, we are going to try to do heavy marketing, so that'll include Saturday Hopper, but it will also include our Tri-Transit month we're going to do in May, and what that actually means is for the month of May, all of our services will be free for everybody. So we're going to market it, we're going to get some interest, we're going to get people to try our service, hopefully like it and see how it can work for them, and continue to grow our ridership. So, and that will include, of course, the fare shuttle because that falls in May, so that'll be free as well this year.
Erin, what program will cover the cost of our Tri-Transit?
We have LC Top funding for free fares.
Wait a minute. Brian.
We have LC Top funding that has been set aside for a free fare program, originally designated during COVID. We never spent all of it, so we kind of are under the gun to want to try to spend it because it's been sitting there for a couple of years in the books. So we anticipate with the marketing and hopefully the ridership generated during May to exhaust that project funding. We're very excited, Gary. And then the last little note I'll say is that our short-range transit plan will start this year. Our coordinated plan, you just awarded a contract for. And I just released the RFP for the RTP, which are all kind of transit, have transit-related study aspects to them. So that's all I got. But I'll take your questions.
Yay.
First, looking at your report, we're still under 10% on fare box recovery, or like 8.7 is what I'm seeing here.
Yeah, it's.
So we're still looking at trying to meet what the state requirement is. And so if we give free rides and we use the LTF money, can we use that against, so we can?
Yep.
So, okay, because I was looking at it, whoa.
Very strategic.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. That's my question. You've answered, that's all I have. Thank you.
On the Irish Day shuttle, is that running just normal, like Saturday Hopper, or is it special for that day?
We run the Saturday Hopper schedule, but we do make we have to amend our route a little bit to account for it, and so we try to hit the spots where they have the major parking in Murphy's, and we try to coordinate with them on that.
It was very successful last year.
Yeah.
So what Cynthia did is she identified the electric bus, and then she had a separate bus going up towards Arnold that just went back and forth to Arnold, and then we had the route to Angels and Murphy's, back and forth. So it worked out really well.
Yeah, I went to like Wyndham,
Yep,
I think Save Mart, Pickle Porch.
Yep.
And then I took it, it was fun.
we got a lot of
great.
compliments on,
Yeah. It's so
that
great because
Irish
you don't have to
days.
worry about parking in
Yep.
Murphy's.
Yes.
One more question. Cajun Fest is coming up in May here in San Andreas through the Rotary Club. Is there a possibility to contact Rotary and maybe utilize buses because the amount of people that come here trying to find parking, if we find,
Yep.
then we can utilize the buses?
who would we coordinate with to
Um,
designate like parking spots that we could shuttle them with?
I will contact them. It's probably
Okay.
Dave Sneed's.
Okay.
Or, yeah, or his, you know,
Park them all out at the old airport.
yeah, I mean, we take, at the airport, they can park and we run back and forth and,
Okay.
and we can set it up with them. I think it'll work great. So,
Will do.
okay. I will contact them.
I have a question, and I, just more of a reminder, and I know, probably do know the answer, but my brain's not thinking. Dollar ride. Outside of the designated days that are on the list, are there other opportunities for people to use dollar ride to go outside of the county to either Sonora or Jackson?
You mean outside of the designated days?
Yes.
We only go out of county on, so Monday through Friday, you can get to Jackson, from San Andreas
Okay,
on dial ride. And then on Wednesdays, you can go from like West Point, Wilseyville to Jackson. And then we have our Fridays going into Sonora, but nobody ever uses it at this point.
Okay.
And then of
Okay.
course, we have our Columbia College connection during the school year,
Yeah.
and that's on Monday through Friday.
okay. If there was a request outside of those designated days, do we honor that?
It would depend on what the request was.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, are they talking about taking them just right into Sonora? Because we don't want to, you know, impede on Tuolumne County's service. So it would depend on what the request was.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, with that, do we need to adopt, that's just a report out, right? No
Correct.
action? Okay. Next is item number 8, but I don't see Cynthia here, so we'll skip.
Snow and Arnold, so she's had to stay late.
Okay.
Couldn't
That's
take
fine.
the bus.
Okay, and then next we have staff reports. Are there any staff reports? No? Okay, and with that, we will see everyone March 6th at 5:30 right here in this boardroom. Thank you. Have a good night.